Hi everyone. In this video I just want to show you how to use Netbeans with creating a single class, and then we will see how do we write another class which contains the main method that uses the class itself. So what you need to do is basically open the Netbeans application. So I will just go and search for the Netbeans. I'm gonna click on the application. Okay, so it might take some time to open for the first time, but will won't be that slow whenever it's launched. So what you need to do is to start with any application. You need to um, you need to start a project or to create a new project. So what you need to do is to go to File, then you say New Project. Now when you go to New Project, you will see that you have this menu of categories and a menu of projects. So to start a very simple Java application, you just need to choose this folder or this category Java, and you choose a Java application. So you just need to go next now, and you need to give it a name. So I'm gonna call it my first Java class, or let's say my first Java application or app, so that will be better. Here you have to choose the location in which you want to store the project. I will just choose my desktop. You can browse wherever you would like to store it. So I will just keep it on the desktop in the meanwhile, and you click finish. Okay, now as you can see, a project has been created for Java, and you will see on the right, on the left side, that we have a tree menu. So you will find that we have some source packages, libraries. So we will just I'm not gonna mention these in detail, so just click here, keep clicking on the plus sign until you keep expanding the tree until you get my first Java application.java. So here, this is the file in which it shows here on the editor. So as you can see, in NetBeans, whenever you click on this file, this is the content of the file. So the NetBeans will provide you with a specific file, with a specific content for the files. Of course, you can change the content. We have some comments here, so I will just remove these comments in the meanwhile. Remove this section, remove this section as well, and remove this. So I just removed all the comments. As you can see in NetBeans, there should be a package, so you don't have to remove this. We will talk about packaging later on. So I will, as you can, from the beginning, we have in line 4, we have public class my first Java application. So this is the class. I usually prefer to have the braces on response to each other. So we have here public static void main, which is the main method. So this file contains the class which contains the main method. Now I would like to create a class that represents, for example, a student. So what we need to do, I will just keep this aside, and I'd like to create another class that belongs to the same application. So in this application we will be having two files. One file that represents the test drive class, in which it includes the main, as we will use the new class that we will be creating, and we'll have another class which we call the student, that we will create objects from in the main method. So what we need to do now is to create another class within the same application. How do we create a class? We just go to File again, and we say Add a new file. I'm not gonna create a new project, I will add a file. So create a new file. Then you go choose Java category, and I would like to create a new class in this project. So just check this Java class and click next. Now what would you like to name your class? I'm gonna call it student. Keep these options as they are and click finish. So now as you can see, a new file has been introduced here. So we have the file that contains the main method, and we have a file that represents a student, so public class student. So I'm going to remove the comments again. But as you can see in the package, my first application, package my first app, my first Java app, it exists in both files. This is a requirement in Netbeans to have a package for both files together so that they can run whenever you or they can see each other whenever you'd like to. We will talk about package later on. So public class student, as we used to do in BlueJ, so I'm gonna just add the member, the attributes, the constructor, and the field. So I'll just give some simple class. So for example, the student has a name and a GPA. So I'm gonna introduce these two attributes. So we just say private string s name. So this is the student name, and private double GPA. Then we have the constructor, which, for example, I'm going to use the constructor that takes two parameters. So I'll just say public, the name of the class, which is student, and I'm going to give it a string sname followed by double GPA. So now what we would like to do, I would like to take this parameter and I put it in this field, and I would like to take this parameter and I put it in this field. So what we need to say, sname equals sname GPA equals GPA. However, as we mentioned earlier in the lecture, that we cannot do this because that means I'm going to store this value in itself and the GPA in itself. I'd like to distinguish between this and this. So in order to tell the Java that this is the parameter and this is the attribute inside the object, so we'll take the parameter and assign it to the attribute in the object. So that's why we have to proceed this with this. So that means in this object, I'm gonna store this. Now what we need to do, I'm gonna create set and get methods for the both attributes. So I'm gonna say public void set name, and we take string sname as a parameter, and we just say here this dot sname equals sname. Of course, if you would like to have some rules for the naming, for example, I don't want to have an empty name. I don't want to have a name that has only one letter. So you can just put the if statement here somewhere. So I can just say, for example, I'd like to have the name with three letters or above. So I will just say the following: if sname, which is string, which is this parameter, dot length greater than or equal to 3, just do this. Otherwise, else I just keep this dot name. For example, by default, I will just make it, for example, Ali. So this is a default name. Of course, you can do the check as well here in the constructor, so that you make sure that no invalid data is stored. So I will just do the get method. So I'm going to return a string get name. I will just say return sname. We will do exactly the same for the GPA. So I will just say public void set GPA double GPA, and then we say here if the GPA is greater than or equal to 0 and the GPA is less than or equal to 4. So what we need to do is this dot GPA equal GPA. Else, by default, if a value is outside the range, we will just make the GPA equal to 0. And then we do the same for the get public. We return double get GPA, and we just say return GPA. So this is our class so far. Now what we need to do, of course you can add more methods. It depends on what you have, not necessarily that access the attributes. You can also have methods that do some calculations. It depends on the application itself. Now we are done with this class. Now I just want to see how can I use this class within this. Of course, before we do anything, you can just save your work and check. How do we check whether we have a compilation error or not? We just go to run, and then you click on build project, or I prefer usually clean and build project so that it performs something. Now as you can see here, you have an output. Usually you have this in the bottom of the application. So I'm gonna click here on the outputs, and you'll get this build successful. That whenever you get build successful, that means you have no error. However, let's just put, for example, here I'm gonna remove this semicolon, and I will say clean and build again. So what happened, as you can see, I have an error. So you have one error. So what is that error? You will see on the top here, as you can see, error semicolon expected in line 33. So as you can see, in line, this is 32, 33, there is a missing semicolon. So what you need to do is to put the semicolon and you compile again. After compilation, we have build successful. So we have no errors. So I just want to test this. I just go now, when I finish this class, I'd like to go to the class that contains the main. So I'm going to click here. So now I'm going to use that class. So I'd like to create an object of class student. So inside the main method, I will just say student s1 equals new student. Now as you can see, we will get an error. Why this error? If you just highlight, put the cursor over this error, it says constructor student in class student cannot be applied to given types, because our constructor, which we implemented in student, this constructor takes 2 parameters. So that means we have to add 2 parameters to this. So let's say I'm gonna name my the student, for example, and the GPA is 3.1. So now we have no errors. We managed to create an object. Now I just want to apply the method, for example, set or get. So see what happens whenever we put s1. This is the object name that we created. When I put dot, then a set of methods will be displayed. Some of these methods we haven't actually implemented, but they are there. We will talk about these later on when we talk about inheritance. But the methods in which we implemented are already there. We have get GPA, get name, set GPA, set name. These are methods which we implemented. So let's say I'd like to change the GPA of that student. So I'm going to click on set GPA and I choose it. So now we say s1.set GPA. So I will now change the GPA from 3.1, let's say, for example, to 2.5. Now I would like to see what is the content of that specific object. So we need system.out.println. Now I'd like to know what's the actual name of that student and the GPA. So we'll just say s1 dot. We get the name of that student, for example, plus. I just want to put a space between the name and the GPA. Then we put plus back again to do the concatenation, and we just say s1 dot get GPA. Now if we would like to check whether our class is correct, and the main now it's supposed to display on the screen Abdullah and 2.5. So let's see, how do we run? We compile back again, so we have no errors. Perfect. And now we would like to run. You can just click on display. So run a project. So when you click here, as you can see in the output screen below, you have Abdullah and 2.5. So this is a quick that was a quick introduction for Netbeans. So now actually this is the IDE that we will be using from now on. And that's it. Thank you.